Alright, my name is Sean Fallon, and you're listening to episode 17, 6 Feet Under. Welcome to From First to Last. Where everybody knows. Hello again and welcome again. My name is Sean Fallon. This is From First to Last. Welcome to episode 17. Today is a sad day as we're currently in mourning for our guest who comes to us from beyond the grave. He's Marcelo Pico?
Yes, Marcelo Pico. You got it. Good job. Most people don't get it.
That's good. Well, I've just woken up, so usually I kind of make a bit of a meal of it, but that's good. Anyway, Marcelo. The late Marcelo, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy. I'm here for this occasion. Yes, commemorating the passing of one of the great series of all time. And apparently, according to your introduction, I'm also dead. So I don't know how that happened.
These things happen. There'll be a little flashback. Well, actually, yeah. What TV show are we going to talk about?
Oh, the greatly departed TV show 6 Feet Under.
6 Feet Under. So yeah, so usually it would be well, obviously you can't do it on a podcast, but it should come up with like your name and the dates and all that, like. But yeah. So yeah, 6 Feet Under ran for 63 episodes from 2001 until 2005. Marcelo, what is your experience with 6 Feet Under?
Oh, where do I start? Yeah, there's a reason why I picked this to discuss on your show. By the way, I love the concept of your show, and that's kind of what got me interested in doing this. To discuss a first episode and last episode of a series. And I came to you for with two options. I was like, either Hannibal or 6 Feet Under, and Hannibal I think is one of the best series in the last 10 years, and funnily enough, 6 Feet Under I think is one of the best series of all time, and definitely my favorite series of the last 20 years. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's for sure a favorite of mine, and to discuss it in this way, I think would be appropriate. Oh my gosh, we're back to my first viewing of it. I saw this maybe a year after it ended.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just sped through the series. I grabbed the episodes and I was like, okay, I hear this show is fantastic, so why not go through it? And I did, and I was a big ball of emotions by the end. And then I started recommending it to people, and I bought the whole DVD set because I didn't have the entire collection at that point. And yeah, this was 10 years ago now. And it's been 10 years since I've actually seen the entire series, and I really need to revisit it because it's one of those series that is extremely life-affirming to me. It says so much. Obviously, it's about death first and foremost, and how people handle death, and how people live their lives with all this tragedy and just life happening coming at them. And I really took that to heart. In the position where I was 10 years ago, and I feel after revisiting these two episodes, the finale and the pilot, I need to revisit this series and maybe get some. I need to revisit the life affirming notion that this series presents. So yeah, I love it to death. And one of my favorite things that I've ever done for anybody is loan them my big box set of DVDs. And and what happened after this person viewed all the episodes was they called me right after watching the finale, and they were in tears. And they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I just watched." And I go, "I know." Yeah. So to talk about the show, to recommend it to people, it's I feel like it's a mission of mine. It's definitely a show that needs to be seen, and it like I said, it deals with death like no other show has, and for me especially, it connects with me on so many levels. So yeah, I can gush about this show all episodes, Sean, but if you want to get into specifics.
Well, yeah, no, obviously feel free to. I think there's definitely going to be moments where you can just go wild. For me, my experience of it's a bit different because I started watching it when it came out. Like it was during it was definitely one of those shows that sort of came out at the same time as like Sopranos and like Sex and the City and those ones. And it was this sort of thing of suddenly people were saying, guys, TV is better than movies. Like that was this was one of the first ones to sort of be of that thing, and that's what sort of put me onto it. But the thing is, I started watching it when I was 17, and I think I watched the first two seasons, and then it just got on. I think I was too young, and I think it was a little bit too. It was talking about things that hadn't really hit me yet. You know, I hadn't had any experience with death or anything like that. I was just a kid. So I sort of it got too grim for me, and I bowed out after two seasons. But my brother and his partner were mad into it, and every time I went to their house, it would just be on, and I'd just catch little episodes, and I'd be like, "Oh shit, what's going on there?" And they'd be like very quickly, "Oh, so and so, oh that's George, and that's someone else, and that's Dwight from The Office and stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I caught little bits, but until I rewatched them for this episode, I hadn't seen the finale ever.
Oh wow.
But yeah, it's a definitely it was a when I was watching it, I absolutely loved it, and but I think it was just too much for my young brain to take in.
Yeah. So have you seen the entire series or just the first two seasons and the finale?
First two seasons, sprinklings, and then the finale.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I was a bit older than you. I was like I think 19 when I saw this
Okay.
first. And I don't know. I guess I was just in a position where it's like I needed some type of I don't know what the right word is spirituality in my life. You know,
Mm.
I didn't grow up being very religious, and I just kind of grasped at concepts that I found interesting, and this fell in my lap. Like I was studying philosophy and all that
Okay.
business, and just the dealing with death really connected with me. So I think that's why I connected with it when I was younger, 19 years old. Yeah, still to this day, I still struggle with those concepts, Sean. I'll tell you what. I
Yeah.
mean, and yeah, I guess that's why I grasped on it so well at that point in my life.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I think I had quite a or touch wood continue to have quite a charmed life in that. Like, I think one of the things with me is my family. We've all like my family in England it's a very small family. It's like me, my mum and dad, my brother, and my grandmother, and then everyone's sort of around that. But we don't like only recently has everyone sort of become closer. So I never had that. I like because my wife has a massive family, like loads of uncles, loads of cousins, brothers, aunties, grandparents, great grandparents. So she's kind of used to there being people passing away and there being tragedy and stuff like that. Where I was sort of like, a kid watching this show going, "Wow, people die? How weird!" And it just never really kind of it never I couldn't make that, like you say, that sort of philosophical jump. It couldn't, it didn't give me anything except entertainment. And then it got to a certain point where I was like, this show is making me sad to watch it, so I'm just gonna just bow out. It's too unrelentingly grim, which it is in the sense that to kind of seg into the first episode, because it is a very unromantic view of grief.
Yeah.
It is that. I mean, what did you think rewatching the first episode for this?
Yeah, rewatching the first episode, yeah. Like I said, there's just unrelenting sadness in this. I mean, of course, I was about to ask, are we doing spoilers? But of course we're doing spoilers.
Of course.
So yeah, in one of the first scenes, the patriarch of the family, Richard Jenkins, is killed, and thus setting the course for the entire series. And it's a extremely powerful moment, and it's a hell of a way to start
Yeah, definitely.
your TV show. Yeah, what hit me is just how I guess seeing it now for the first time in a long time is just how great and fleshed out the characters are, and how
Yeah.
I connect with them. And we'll talk about the finale when we talk about it, but it's a place, it's a universe, whatever you want to call it, that I really want to revisit because I do care about the characters.
Yeah.
And the pilot makes it very clear that although some of these characters aren't that's lovable. I mean, Michael C. Hall as David, not the best likable character,
Yeah.
but over time you will get to like him. his backstory here in the pilot of him being a closeted, gay man, it does give him some, some depth and some compassion.
Yeah.
You do care about him. So in that instance, for sure, you connect with the character. Claire, the youngest, she is smoking, was it crystal meth in the first episode?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did write down a quote in here where the quote is, "It's just crystal meth.
It's just crystal.
It's just crystal." You're like, oh, that's so weird because obviously, like, Breaking Bad's a few years off, so it's this idea of just how naive that sounds now. Just like, yeah, dude, it's just crystal meth. Crystal meth. Oh, cool. Let's go.
And there's an instance where she thinks she's smoking crack. It's like, no, it's just crystal meth. Don't worry. And in that instance, like her being Claire's character being completely high throughout the entire experience of her finding out her dad has died. Oh man,
incredible!
These character moments are indicative of what these characters will be for the next 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And Nate, Peter Krause, him having a one night stand essentially with Brenda, basically sets the course for his character and how he'll handle relationships for the next 5 years. And you get that for sure in the pilot. So yeah, so these little character moments are important, and I think they for sure set the ball rolling for events later on. And it's interesting to get all that in episode 1. I kind of forget all these important events that happened in the first episode. I forget how big of a part Brenda plays in the pilot. Back when I watched this originally, like for the first time, I always thought Brenda would just fall off and be just a secondary character. We might not see her again after a few episodes or something like that. But they really made her a huge part of the show by the end, as we'll discuss in the finale. So I love how big of a presence she has and how important a player she is in Nate's life so early on. Oh boy, where else? Freddy Rodriguez as Frederico. Like he has great moments.
He does.
Yeah, that moment with him and Nate, and how Frederico's like joyous about his kids, and where David is David and says, "Hey, Frederico, get back to work." It's like, geez, that relationship is there from episode 1. It's a contentious relationship. David, like I said, he's a prick on the outside. That's just his character through and through. And Frederico is always like combating against that stern nature of David. So, Sean. I mean, these characters, I love them, like I said, and I'm glad that they're so fleshed out in this first episode, surprisingly so. And I will say, another impression of the first episode, I forgot that it ends with Ruth just asking Nate to just stay, right?
Yeah.
At the very end. And you don't see Nate basically being parts of the family business, which he does in later episodes. So it's interesting that it ends there. And they in this first episode they just deal with the father's death, and that's all you really need in that pilot. You don't really need furthering of the plot. I mean, you do get now that I mentioned the plot, you do get that man. I forget. It's a part of the first season, right? Where
like the sleazy, it's like a big business, isn't it? It's like Poseidon or Neptune or Venus or something, and they're like the supermarket of dead people. That's not very good.
Which
the sort of
it never sat with me right, that whole arc, and I think they rightfully got rid of it. I don't know, by season 2, I think. Like I remember it was like a big part of the show for a while, but then an episode later they're like, "Oh, it's been taken care of. It's done," which is rightful so, because that's not what the show is about. It's not a show where it has huge like Sopranos level storylines or big huge plot moments. It's about sorry to say, about life. It's kind of cliche to say. It's just a frame of life. 5 years of this family going through the crazy stuff that happens in a family that owns a funeral home. So I appreciate that it's character first and plot second.
No, that's good. I mean, you're spot on with like how quickly the characters are introduced and sketched in. Like, you definitely get Nate and Brenda, like their initial interactions and all that stuff is fantastic. And then like David when I think he's just introduced, sat at the table, very buttoned up, very well put together, just like talking about how much of a waste of money the hearse was, and
Yeah.
no, it's fantastic. Like they don't, like you say, there isn't tons of plot. There's obviously the car crash sort of kicks everything into high gear, but there's not, like you say, there's not a sense at the end. It's not like Ruth says to Nate, "Oh, can you stay and work here?" She's just like, "Can you stick around for a bit?" And really, you could have then taken the show from that and just like Nate stays a bit and goes.
Yeah.
There's no setting up of any sort of future plots or anything. It is basically like, this is who we're going to be following. This is our intros, and it's very well written in that sense to sort of get it all done very quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fantastic. I think it's a fantastic, like you say, like the unromantic view of death, like the way, like Frances Conroy has a lot of work in this show, which is just her being right on the brink of a nervous breakdown, like just constantly. Like Ruth Fisher is just always just right about to snap, isn't she? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, I love her in this. I'm glad I rewatched this because I just forget how much she reveals and how much she's going through in this episode. I sincerely forgot that she revealed that she had an affair. And she's shouting this during the funeral service. They're in their private room because like David's like trying to hide this from people, and Nate's like, it doesn't matter, like she can grieve however she wants. And then at that point, she's kind of having this breakdown, and then she reveals she had this affair with like some man who went camping. I don't know.
yeah, it's all a bit, yeah.
Which is kind of to me it's like an odd thing to say, but also I find it very real. I mean, to be in a relationship where somebody wants to do something, the other person's like, no, I have to focus on this, I have to focus on the business, and they secretly have this affair going on behind the other person's back. It kind of hits me. It's like, oh, I kind of know somebody who went through something like that, because it's real. Like I said, it's a real look at these people's lives, even though some of it may be a bit overblown, which I love. It's very Alan Ball to me. For those who don't know, I mean, he wrote American Beauty, and he also created True Blood, which is a show that I kind of suffered through for 2 seasons, and I just gave up on. It was too much for me. I'll say that. But yeah, there's moments here and there where it is surreal. And yeah, her revealing the affair at that inopportune time is kind of a bit surreal. But it straddles the line of being very surreal and being very real of how somebody would deal with death. And speaking of the surreal stuff, like I wrote down here, like David's visions or his manic state, like we see inside his head, like during the funeral. It's not even his dad's funeral, right? At that point, he has a funeral beforehand, and he's dealing with all these grieving people of like some other people's family, and you just see him scream, and then it's revealed in the next cut that it's all inside his head, which plays great when I think it's during his dad's funeral when he screams. I don't know. I forget the timeline of this, but then later on there's a scene where he actually does scream and he scares the people at the funeral. So.
Yeah, I can't think now actually if it is the same funeral.
It might be.
Yeah, because you have that sort of weird, creepy, chatty mourner, isn't it?
That's right.
And then he just screams in her face.
Yeah, which she comes to play. She becomes kind of a guest character later on. I forget. Like she kind of is a wannabe love interest for David, and then that doesn't work out.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Obviously.
Well, that was something as well. Like. Rewatching this and thinking like when I was 17 and stupid, like watching 6 Feet Under, like David and Keith, like that was just such a relationship. Like as a teenager, I could not. I mean, I could understand it. I knew what the concepts of romance and love were, but that was really my first time of like watching any sort of drama with, I guess, with gay male characters. Like I'd seen like gay women on TV, but to see like two dudes kissing and just being like, oh, this makes me weirdly uncomfortable. And then like now, and then to watch it years later when I'd catch it at my brother's house and to see like that, I'm like, oh, that's cool to see. And that's because later on they sort of when David sort of becomes more comfortable with himself, and you actually see them in public, you're like, oh, that's cool. That's, a comfortable, mature, like, gay couple. That's interesting to see on TV. And then to watch it like yesterday, I was like, oh yeah, this is really well done. This is
Yeah.
fantastic. Like, because you see people try and do that like these days, and just balls it up entirely. And it was very good to sort of. I imagine in 2001, this would have been quite not controversial, but sort of something new.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Their relationship, Keith and David, like theirs, like I think is the most important relationship in the entire series.
Oh, 100%.
Even through all the stuff they go through in later seasons, where they split up and I think one of them has an affair and all this stuff happens, and then in the finale we'll talk about that. But it's they they do come back and they do try to make something out of their relationship, and they try to make it seem as normal as possible, and it's refreshing. It was refreshing for me back then seeing it, and it's still refreshing to me now seeing it. Like you hit the nail on the head. Other series try to attempt this and they don't come close, where it's a solid relationship between two gay men, and it's respectful and it's real. I keep using the word real, I'm sorry. But
Yeah, but that's
it does feel that way. I think Alan Ball is smart in that in how he deals with these characters and how much respect he has for them.
Yeah, no, very much so. I think you're spot on there with real, because there's no like sugarcoating as well. Like they are a couple having like couples fights. It's
Right.
not like there's a whole thing of like, oh well, they're this like perfect gay couple, and or they're only having fights because of their sexual orientation. It's no, they're having fights because they're a couple and they disagree on things. And I mean, obviously, I did put this in my notes. This episode, this first episode, is just basically outbursts and aggression all the way through. Like everyone is just telling everyone else to fuck off, but all the way through. Which I guess is like just a thing of grief, isn't it? And just being with your family and just like stress just boiling over. But it is just constantly someone will say something and someone else will be like, "What the fuck do you know?" Just straight away down their throat, like just all the way through.
It's
Which is real. I guess.
Exactly, yeah. And one note I wrote down is when Nate and Claire are talking, and Claire's like, "Oh, I can't believe all this is happening," and Nate's like, "Well, oh yeah, you're going through stuff," and then Nate goes through the stuff he's going through, and he wouldn't normally he wouldn't normally say this if it weren't for his father dying.
Yeah.
It's just his time to finally say, he has a shitty apartment, a temporary job, no relationship. He's 35 and he's had 4 root canals. 4 root canals, he says. He like screams it. So yeah, it's I guess it's unfortunate that their father's death is the time to like reveal all this deep-seated fear, whatever stuff that's building up inside them, and then like, hey, it's time for a release. So yeah, it's very interesting that there are just a lot of people expressing their emotions, and one thing that I just realized now, like one person who doesn't really do that is David, and
Yeah.
he by the end of the episode he goes to Keith's apartment, kind of like saying help. And that's when he's at his most vulnerable is with Keith, which I think is a very important moment.
Yes.
And
Definitely, because he is just So
no, I was gonna say it makes their relationship just that more important and that more like grounded. So I love that character moment.
yeah, no, it's great because like David is you say well put together, and just there's a scene where I think they all come home after identifying the body, and he's like stood on the stairs, just like buttoned up, ramrod straight, just standing there, and straight away he's all business. He's like, "Oh, did you bring the body home?" "Oh, well, what the fuck?" And he gets on the phone. It's just like he's just a man doing a job, and he's got nothing else. Like it's just like in front of everyone else, he's just completely shielded from them. And then at the end, like when Keith opens the door, and he's just there like shivering, isn't he? He's just like it's like he's in shock. It's all just come out. And yeah, that's a fantastic it's a fantastic character moment, fantastic writing, and what just a side thing, what did you think of American Beauty?
I like the movie. I know much has been said about people hating it. I know on Twitter people like to hate on American Beauty, and I'm like, I think it's a solid movie. I mean, I'm not gonna say it didn't deserve the Best Picture Oscar because it was. I don't know. I don't take much credence into the awards these days, but anyway, I do like it. I do think Alan Ball's best creation is 6 Feet Under. I think that's saying a lot compared to American Beauty. So yeah, I think American Beauty is fine to answer your question.
Yeah, no, I think they do work sort of as companion pieces. I think there's a lot of surreal stuff, a lot of dream sequences, a lot of like odd moments, and it is that running theme of just sort of like suburbia is, American suburbia is weird. There's weird shit going on. But also that whole thing, like there's a running theme in this, and it does carry over into the last episode, of people either not being where they wanted to be or not knowing where they want to be, and sort of how terrifying that is. So you've got like obviously David sort of wanted to go to law school but ended up being a mortician or a funeral director, and now with Nathaniel dead, that's it now. He's just, the cuffs have gone on and he's locked in. And then you've just got Nate, like, and there's a very telling line of Nate that just, I feel like, is his whole character, where he's like almost boasting that he's the assistant manager at a Seattle co-op. You're like, oh god, that says so much about that character just so quickly. And then later on, obviously, like you were saying before, he makes that confession to Claire of just like, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know where I'm supposed to be, and I've just got this like half-lived life that he's in. And then again, we'll talk about this probably more in a moment, but like in the last episode, Claire makes a very similar declaration of her. She's like, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know where I'm going to go and I don't know what I'm going to be. And I think there is that sort of, it's either the fear of not knowing what's going to happen and then the regret of whatever happened not being what you wanted to happen. And I think that's definitely something that speaks to all of us. It speaks to a lot of us. I mean, imagine me and you watching this show as teenagers. I mean, that definitely resonated with me, like just not knowing what's going to come next and what I'm going to do, which is fascinating. And then American Beauty being the same. Kevin Spacey in that is just like, he just wakes up, doesn't he, one day, and he just doesn't know where the fuck he is.
Yeah, I need to rewatch American Beauty, actually, because I need to reevaluate it, because I think I saw American Beauty around the same time I saw this. Because I was like, I saw American Beauty, and then I think I looked up Alan Ball and like, oh, he also did 6 Feet Under, so I should see that. So yeah, I see your points, and it makes complete sense. I do remember Spacey's characters being sort of like Nate's character, just saying, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life, and just that's. And I think in that movie, in American Beauty, it's more just him going through midlife crisis, and Nate's. Yeah. It's just something that he's been dealing with his entire life. Something that he finally reveals in that pilot to somebody. It's like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing at all. And yeah, we'll talk about how that plays in, like you were saying, like in Claire's character, and how Nate's, whatever you want to call it, ghost essence, talks to Claire about it, which is a favorite line of mine. He says in the finale, he says, I wrote it down. He says, I spent my whole life being scared of not being ready or not being right, and where did that get me? So,
yeah.
Oh,
how did you feel rewatching this last episode?
A lot of tears.
Yeah.
A lot of tears. Oh, man. Let's see. Where to start? It starts with a birth, which is a first in the series. Yeah. One thing I actually forgot is that it does start with that birth, with Brenda giving birth to her and Nate's baby. And it's the first time you see a birth, not a death, in the show, which I for some reason I thought that happened earlier in the series. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it starts with that, and it goes from there. Since you haven't seen the entire series, you may miss some episodes. Did you go back and watch the episode with Nate dying?
No. The rule is just the first and last. But I had seen that episode before at my brother's house. I think I'd just been at their house, and they were watching it, and I was just there. And I was like, oh yeah, because they were, oh, do you mind? Because they were like burning through it at this point. Like, oh, do you mind if we watch it? Because we've got to get, we've got it. We're like 3 episodes from the end. I was like, yeah, yeah, no worries. So I didn't really know what was going on, and then I was like, oh right, okay, that's what Nate's doing. Okay, I see.
I mean, not, since this podcast is first and last, I don't want to dive too deep into those episodes with Nate dying, but I don't know, these last 5 episodes of 6 Feet Under really hit me hard because Nate dies, kind of unexpectedly. I really didn't know when I first watched this that he died. The main character of the show dies. 5 episodes before the finale, which is, I think it's still one of the best moments of TV I've seen.
Yeah.
For anybody watching the show who doesn't know that happens, I'm sure it's a shock. It's so surprising, and the show handles it so well. How it kind of gives the baton from Nate to David in that melded dream sequence, which it's a brilliant moment. And then grief follows in the following episodes, and now cut to this finale where yes, the family's still dealing with Nate's death. It's still hovering over them. You say that with Ruth. She's dealing with the death. It's very similar to how the family was dealing with the death of Nathaniel in the first episode.
Yeah.
Like this entire series, death just hovers over them, and even more so when like one of their family has died. And that's this really makes me want to rewatch the entire series, honestly, because jumping ahead 4 or 5 years to the finale, I just forget just how much has changed in these people, and you do see the change. Flat out, you see Keith and David, they're together, they went through some hardships, but they have kids now. Yeah. And I honestly forgot how they got the kids. I think they adopted them at one point. So, and they're trying to build a family, so that's their main driving point. Federico, he's trying to build his new business. Yeah. And Claire is moving on. She's looking to move to New York. So all these characters are trying to move on with their lives. It's like a pivotal moment in their lives, just 5 years after their dad's death. And I know where. I don't want to jump to the final moments, not yet, because that's
okay. Well, that's fair, because that is the bit that was incredible.
Yeah,
but we will come to that. It was, I think, God, one thing I just thought to myself, like watching Ruth Fisher again, just like being an actress and just being an actor or actress and just being at that level of emotional intensity all the time must just be exhausting. Like, me and my wife at the moment are watching Stranger Things, and we're like 5 episodes into it.
Right.
And we were like, God, Winona Ryder must have just like slept like a baby every night, because you'd just be like at that constant level of like tears and mania. And Ruth just, I don't think she stops crying. And like, if there's brief moments where she's not like completely grief stricken. It's when she's like with dead eyes watching Just Shoot Me on TV. And then that must just be so difficult to do, like, just to keep that up all the time. But she's not melodramatic. She is just someone who's just intensely sad. Like, it never, I feel like there's moments where it could have just really gone into like terrible melodrama, but she restrains it in. I think she does really well with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is tough.
For anybody just watching the pilot and the finale, you'd think that no good happens to Ruth in the entire series. And it wasn't until I had a chance today to see some of the special features on the 6 Feet Under DVD, and I forgot there's an episode, I forget what season it was, where she takes ecstasy. Ruth's character.
I've seen that one. They go camping.
Yeah. And Frances Conroy said in an interview that was her favorite moments with her character, because like that's the moment where she just lets loose and she's just free of all her the things she has to do, the worries that she has. And there are very few moments where Ruth, the character, has time to actually be happy. And there's a moment in the finale where she says, paraphrasing her, she's like, she'll never be happy. So, which is like, oh God, that really hurts. Like, oh man. But and luckily, what's his name? Babe guy.
George.
George, James Cromwell. He comes in, and again, I forget his arc. I know he had trouble with his like Alzheimer's or something in the final season.
I think it's something, isn't it? Like he has episodes because he can't get over his mother's suicide.
Something like that.
He has like electric shock treatment or something.
Oh, see, I forget, Sean. This is the reason why I need to go back and rewatch it. But yes, he comes in and reminds Ruth, Ruth took care of him when he was in trouble, and now he's gonna try to take care of her. Which is a touching moment where he just hugs Ruth and tries to make things better. Again, like this series deals with death, and it also deals with grief. And this episode is about dealing with grief. Ruth is dealing with the loss of Nate, and also her possibly not seeing her grandkids again. And she's going through a hard time. And like you were saying, Frances Conroy just nails it. I'm shocked that she didn't get the Emmy or more acclaim for her role, and she's fantastic in this.
Yeah, I did look who she lost the Emmy to, because she got nominated about 3 times, and I think she lost to like someone from Law and Order.
Okay,
and then
that's it was like that's fine, I guess. Oh well.
Yeah, they were legit ones, like, because I think with Peter Krause lost it to like Gandolfini, a couple of times and stuff like that, and like Michael C. Hall lost it to Kiefer Sutherland for 24, stuff like that.
I love 24, but come on, I should
acting.
Yeah, I should mention this. If you were asking me, I think this is the best I've seen Michael C. Hall. This is to me kind of like, this is an odd comparison, but I kind of had this realization during the summer. Have you ever seen the show Happy Endings? Yeah. Like, I love that cast, and I truly believe that cast, that collection of people, is like, that is the best they'll ever be in that series. Like, as much as I love them, I don't think they'll ever reach those heights again. But Sean, I love that cast to death, and I honestly think here in 6 Feet Under, I don't think this cast will ever be as good as they were in the show. That's just my honest opinion. Like, Michael C. Hall, okay, he was great as Dexter, but he will always be David to me, and Peter Krause will always be great in like stuff like Parenthood, but he's always Nate Fisher to me. Yeah, Lauren Ambrose, Freddie Rodriguez, Rachel Griffiths. She's fantastic, but she'll always be Brenda to me. So yeah, that's how I feel about the cast. I have to say that.
I see Rachel Griffiths is an interesting one because she's from Melbourne. She's from Australia. She's from where I live. So she sort of... it's an interesting one because I think my introduction to her was like Muriel's Wedding, that movie from the 90s, and then I saw her in 6 Feet Under. And then now I'll just see her randomly on TV over here. Like, she'll just be in like there'll be like a prestige drama about like Australian history, and she'll just be there, or there'll be like, she'll guest star on some show. I'm like, oh shit, Brenda. Because like you say, even though I know her from movies and I know her from Australian stuff, this is like her lightning rod. This is where I always think back to it. Like, oh yeah, she's Brenda in 6 Feet Under. Because she had some hard work with this show. Like, she did some amazing things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of like all the arcs she went through. Like, she was a sex addict at one point. Mm-hmm. She was dealing with Nate cheating, and eventually Nate's death. And she just ran the gamut. I think she may have been the only person in the cast. No. I looked it up earlier today. Like, there's only one Emmy award for acting that this show received.
Patricia
Clarkson. There you go.
Yeah.
She was in the finale, which kind of bummed me out because I do love Patricia Clarkson.
She's great.
Yeah. Anyway, but Rachel Griffiths should have won. All the main cast should have won at least one. But hey, that's what happens.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I sometimes get really obsessed with that, and I'll like look. We'll do a TV show on for the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what Emmys it won. And you always are sort of like, oh right, it didn't win any. Or like, I was surprised, like on the West Wing episode, like Martin Sheen never won one. Like, I feel like that's a gimme. I feel like that just happens.
Or also like Steve Carell for The Office. Like, I would have thought he would have won like 3 of them or something, but no, he hasn't won any. He didn't win any. He hasn't won any. Oh, right. No. Crazy. I know, it's weird.
Anyway, there's some great to go a little bit technical on this final. There's some great stylistic choices that are little callbacks. Like, there's one thing I noticed in the first episode. You've got when David has to call everyone to tell them that Nathaniel's dead. They just do this shot where it's like a super close up on David, and then like Ruth's in the background, and then you're right on top of. You can see like the pores in his skin,
Right.
and he's phoning everyone. And then in the final episode, there's a I don't know. Ruth's phoning someone. I think she's talking to Claire about the baby or something like that, and she's super close up. And then David just sort of like in his sweatpants just like shuffles into the background, and he's come home. And it was an interesting turn
Oh.
because in the first episode he's, completely put together giving out news, and she's a complete mess. And then in the final episode she's not completely put together, but she's the one giving out news, and he is just a bag of shit. He's just messed up. And I think it's one of those things you'd only notice if you watched the first episode and then straight after was the last episode. But it was an interesting reverse because, like you say, I think like, if Nate was the main character, his plotline never really resonated with me. But I always found the David character so fascinating to just be this like, because I've like as a grown up now, I've met people like that who have like, who do have these like other lives, and they have to be very buttoned up in front of their family, but their other life is like they're completely a different person. And to see them with their family in that whole thing where you're like, God, it's just like a full uncomfortable bodysuit that they have to wear. And I just found that fascinating. Like that first episode where he is just so stiff and almost like robotic in his actions. And then to see that final episode where he's a lot looser and more comfortable with who he is, that really that was quite an emotional thing for me. I was just like, oh, thank Christ for that, because I just wanted this character to be happy, and it looks like he is. He's not at the start, but he kind of gets there towards the end. And it's so like you're saying there about loving these characters. It's so funny when you do have that sort of visceral reaction to a TV character of just getting to a point where, like, I just want this person to be happy, and that was David for me.
Oh yeah, and that's also a theme of this final episode, just trying to be happy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I now am picturing that moment where David comes in and Ruth's on the phone. And yeah, you're right. I think it's very purposefully a mirror image of that scene in the pilot where David's on the phone and Ruth is in the background. So yeah, that's smart on Ball, because Ball directed both the pilot and the finale, if I'm correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the show remained unrelenting. In the end, there was like still quite a lot of grief and quite a lot of anger. Like, it was a very angry show. Like, even I'm trying to think of Federico had, because at one point I thought Rico was going to get completely boned over when it was like, oh, we can't afford to buy you out, and we're not going to sell. I was like, oh, this is just going to be a really bad ending for this character. And then it was cool where Keith's like, I don't know, we can put our savings together and buy it, because rather than putting our money together to buy some house, you live in a big gothic mansion. Let's get on that. I thought that was a great idea, and it was great that Rico got his happy ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I since it's been years since I've seen this finale, I forgot that there's that turn where there's a moment there where David just gives up and says, okay, we're going to sell the family business. That's it. Why bother anymore? Then he has that dream, he has that realization of it may not be that way on the surface, but it is an important thing to keep in the family, this family business. And then in the, like you mentioned, there's a moment where you think Federico's not going to get his cut and he's not going to be able to leave the business, but then Keith's like, why not invest in that house, why not live in that house, because that house has been an important part of the family, and he's part of the family, and they want to raise their kids there. So I forget that turn happened, and I wrote it down. It's like, these people like want to make big changes, but it's you can't really make a big life change that quickly. You have to have like incremental changes. It's like not safe changes, but familiar changes. Instead of getting a new house, there's moving into the house where David grew up, and Ruth, instead of living with James Cromwell, George, she goes to live with people who she's familiar with. They're not massive changes that they make, yeah, say for Claire, who makes the biggest change, hers is not the safest change, which I think is the point. Everybody else makes changes that are familiar to them, but Claire is in a position in her life where she makes the biggest change. I guess because she's the youngest, and
Mm.
she needs to really leave that and just make her own life. So I think that's maybe what I'm getting at. With the older people in the family,
Mm.
they know where they belong. The family is important to them. And with Claire, I think she's in a position where she's young enough where she can make it on her own and live her own life. So yeah, I think that's kind of a beautiful sentiment. Keeping that family essence alive and also treading your own way. So
Yeah, no, very much. I think it is like going back to that theme of people not knowing what they want to be. And Claire is in the position, and I know people like this in my life where you meet people. I think it is like that American Beauty thing, and then like parts of this show where people, when they do discover that they haven't done what they wanted to do, but they've built too much of a life to sort of try and do that thing. So really, with David, he's sort of like, okay, yeah, he might not know what he wants to do, but the thing that he's okay, let's see if I can make this point and make it make sense. Okay, go back to the start. So people not knowing what they want to do. Claire doesn't know what she wants to do, but she does have the freedom to just get in a car and drive.
right.
Whereas like David might not know what he wants to do, but he's got a husband. Well, yeah, a husband and kids. So he makes the change, like basically what you're saying, that he makes the changes within his own world, if you know what I mean. So rather than making the big change to sort of be like, oh, I'll go to law school and all that, it's like, no, we'll change it by making this family home a new family, and we'll do it our way and we'll do it better than before. And again, just a powerful, mature idea.
Yeah.
I don't think you couldn't have ended the show with them selling. Well, you could have, but you couldn't. I don't think it would have worked if they'd sold off the house and this show ended with like David enrolling in law school. I think that just would have rang false.
Yeah, I think so.
You've got to have that sort of that house and death and life in the same house was what the show was all about. It wasn't about David wanting to be a lawyer. That's a totally different thing. So he's making these life changes, but he's making them within the box that he lives in, which again is a powerful thing, and it's a good, as we said at the start, like a good real idea. It's what people actually do in the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like that house is the embodiment of death. Like death is around them, and to keep that close to you is important. I think just a reminder, an acceptance of what is to come, and yeah, that's just something the series and these characters have been dealing with their lives. So yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you think of the final moments of that show? Episode?
Yeah. Where everybody dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was emotional. I mean, I really broke down when I think it's the first death you see it's Ruth where she's in the bed and she sees Nathaniel, Richard Jenkins. Which have we mentioned Richard Jenkins is?
We haven't.
Is
Nathaniel
amazing? He's amazing. Yeah, and he pops in through the series as this. Oh, we also didn't mention. I kind of mentioned it before. Some of the dead come back as they're not ghosts, but they're just essences. I guess just the people who see these dead people are I guess it's just an embodiment of their consciousness. I don't know. It's hard to describe. But yeah, but Nathaniel, played by Richard Jenkins, like he pops up in the finale, and also Nate. So yeah, they're dead, but they're there, talking to the characters, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah, but jumping to the finale where everybody dies, which I still think is a great way to end a show like this. One thing I'm going to mention, but I'll mention it after I say this thing. I'm writing it down. Okay. So Ruth dies. She sees Nathaniel, and that broke my heart, honestly, because I love Ruth. I love her character, and to see her like surrounded by family broke my heart. Like this entire sequence is just made to break your heart because you see,
totally.
Like we mentioned before, these characters. I love these characters. I connect with these characters. To see them each die, powerful stuff. Yeah. I will say it is a little clunky. The one death that always just rubs me the wrong way is Keith's death.
Oh yeah.
The old age makeup is not great, and just the way he gets shot is kind of not natural.
It's almost comedic.
Yeah, which is upsetting to me. In that
Yeah.
they should have nailed that. They should have taken time to, I don't know, make it better. There's no other way of saying it. It's not a good death.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then then you see David dying, and he sees Keith.
He sees Keith, yeah, which is
It's
gorgeous.
a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
And, one thing I wrote down is that you see David. He found a new lover, right next to him, like right before he dies.
Yeah.
Kind of a younger, I think, Hispanic man. It's like, oh yeah, David's doing just fine, but
David's fine.
but David sees Keith right before he dies. That's a beautiful moment. I find it funny that Brenda's death, she dies while her brother is talking to her, and he's just rattling on and on about whatever, and then she just croaks. She just passes out and dies, which is a funny way of her character to end, and I think it works because another thing we didn't mention is Brenda's brother,
Sisto, Jeremy's sister.
Yeah, Sisto, Jeremy Sisto.
Billy.
He's so good, and you see him like briefly in the pilots, and he's a bigger character in the finale. I just like that Billy is kind of the cause of her death.
Yeah, like it's almost like he's bored her to death.
Yeah,
like he's just talking. She's like, "Oh God, I'm done. I've put up with this for so fucking long."
Exactly. Oh man, it's fitting, and the stuff they go through in these series is there's just, we don't have enough time to go into it, but they go through a lot.
Yeah, I mean that was I think my first TV depiction of bipolar. That was the first time I'd ever had that experience of like seeing what that is like, and that was interesting. That was a big educational moment for me as a teenager.
Yeah, exactly. Because I like I said before, I was watching the behind the scenes stuff, and they were recalling a scene where Sisto, Billy, just kind of went off on Brenda. Like he had like a box cutter and just attacked her, and I was like, man, I forgot that moment in the show. Yeah, but it gets bad during that series. Anyway, and then I think it's Claire who's the last death, obviously. And she passes away at what, like 101 years old? And she's surrounded by portraits of her family, pictures she's taken, and it's a beautiful death. I'm happy. One part of me says I'm really happy that most of these characters died at an old age, like 70, 80, except for Keith, who dies about like 50 because he gets shot. Yeah. But I also think it's maybe a bit unrealistic that they all die at such an old age. It's like maybe one of them dies in another way. Maybe they have cancer. I don't know. They could have went any other way, but I think they went with like it's not the easy route, but the happier route of them dying at an older age, and especially for Claire dying at 101 years old. It's like that's the best way you could ever go out, right? So yeah, it's an emotional finale. Not without its missteps, I think. But I think it works for sure. I mean, it worked for me. I was in tears, and I had seen it before, but just like I said, going through all of that in the final moments, just seeing these people pass, it still hurts. It still really hurts.
I would happily have that be the ending of every show. Like every single show that ends, I just had a little bit at the end, like during the credits or something, where it just says, "Oh, this is how each of these characters die." Oh, cool. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. See, Sean, that's something I wrote down. I was going to mention after I said all that, and I'm mentioning it now. I after 6 Feet Under, I kind of fell in love with these dramas where you see these messed up families going through all their messed up things. I'm a big fan of Transparent. I mean, I saw Weeds. I'm currently seeing Shameless, and all these shows remind me of 6 Feet Under. Obviously, they're not as great as 6 Feet Under. And that kind of went through my mind, Sean. It's like a perfect end to these like family dramas would be, or really any drama is to see the end of these characters, the end of their lives. But really, we can't I mean, no show can do this all the time. I mean, Parks and
No.
Rec kind of did that.
Yeah, of course.
Fast forwarding in time, seeing the arcs of these characters like 20, 30, 40 years
Yeah.
ahead. So yeah, it would be great to have that, but at this point, I don't think many shows want to copy what 6 Feet Under has done because they've just it's hard to top.
Yeah, no, very much so. And yeah, it's a cool little sequence. And oh, and obviously we missed off Rico dies of a heart
Oh
attack
yes, he
on a
does
cruise ship.
Yeah, which is
But yeah,
unfortunate.
no, just great. Yeah, I think. Okay, anything else you want to talk about with 6 Feet Under?
Not really, Sean. I think we covered pretty much. We can put the nail in the coffin in 6 Feet Under.
Nice.
It's a show I love, and I don't know, Sean. Like, do you think people listen to this podcast having gone through the entire series, or they just do like what I hope people don't do and just watch the first and finale? What do you think, Sean? Like, because I want to say, if you've listened to this whole episode, having just seen the pilot and the finale, go back and watch the rest. That's what I'll say.
No, I do have. I have a friend here who she will listen to the podcast independent. Like she won't watch TV shows. She'll just listen to the podcast, and then she goes and watches the entire show from the beginning. Like she's currently watching Friday Night Lights. Like she'd never seen it before. Listened to the podcast. She's like, oh, that sounds cool, and then just went back and watched the whole thing. Whereas other people only listen to the episodes that it's like their favorite show. I don't know. I mean, I think there are a few people who do follow the rule and kind of they just watch the first and last, whether they've seen the show or not. They sort of do it as I've done it. I don't know. I've got an interesting sort of mix. Like, I think with this show and with a lot of these shows, like I think a lot of the Mad Men and this and those sort of like character study shows. I don't think it matters if you just watch the first and last and then go back and watch from the start. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think watching the final episode of 6 Feet Under, I don't think that's going to ruin anything for you.
No, I don't think so.
It's not like if you watched Breaking Bad and you'd be like, oh, that's how it ends. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is more like an emotional finale than a narrative finale.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much you don't see in between the first and the last episode of 6 Feet Under. Trust me, for those who've just seen the first and finale, there's a lot. There is a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's all worth it.
Yeah, and I think, really with the structure of this podcast, it is just that idea of seeing how a show changes over time, and whether, because obviously, I recorded a Lost episode a few weeks ago, and that was a fascinating one to see how that show started and how that show ended. And then, like with 6 Feet Under, it was very much the same show after 63 episodes, but the characters, you could just see how much they'd grown and changed. And that just shows you incredible writing, because if this had been 63 episodes and we'd watched it and David had still been buttoned up, totally clean, robotic and all that, you'd be like, well then what happens in the 60 episodes? Nothing's changed, nothing's moved. Whereas there were just huge seismic shifts in every character from that first episode to the last episode, which is great, which is the sign of something fantastic and worth seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like you're saying, the way I saw it is like, for me, it maintained its quality throughout the entire series. Like that's my take on it. And it's interesting to see it from the pilots to 5 years later. It just felt like it was just a slice of these people's lives and their moments, like 5 years before and 5 years later, and just stuff's happened in between. But the quality there is constant. So these people have changed in the 5 years, but the show itself has just maintained like what it set out to do. That's one testament to like you said, the writing, everybody involved. I can go on for 3 more hours about how much I love this show, but I don't want to keep everybody's time.
No, that's good. Okay, well, excellent, Marcelo. That was great, mate. That was this is obviously a show very, very close to your heart, and I think this is one as well that I think with it finishing in 2005, it probably predates a lot of people who are in the golden age of TV now. It could be seen as just being something, not a relic, but sort of one of like the older shows. So, like I say, I remember this being one of those first TV shows where people kind of sat up and took notice and was like, oh yeah, TV's doing some amazing things. So I think I'd like to see people sort of listen to this and go, oh, I'll check that out and get hooked on it, which would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I should say one important thing is, like, we're in the golden age of TV, and shows like Transparent are making, big waves. But Jill Soloway, the creator of that, worked on 6 Feet Under. So you could see a show like 6 Feet Under being essential to where we are now in terms of TV. Like you were saying, like, this is one of the first shows that we stood up and took notice, and the actors, the creators of like shows like this went on to create, more important works in the TV pantheon, whatever, why people are saying TV is better than movies now. So I think this is one show it's definitely there. It definitely did help with TV and where it is now. So there you go.
Yeah, no, very, very much so. And it is that sort of thing of like, it's beautifully shot, it looks good, it's well acted, it's well written, the music's great, the theme tune's amazing. It's just all there, and it's what a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive.
Right, Marcelo, where can people find you on the internet if you want to be found?
Yes, you can find me on my personal account at Marcelo J. Pico. Find a classy Jessica Chastain photos there. As for my podcasts, find them all on the Talk Film Society at Talk Film SOC. By the time this comes out, the website, the brand new Talk Film Society website, will be out. So go to talkfilmsociety.com for podcasts, for reviews, and all that good stuff. So yeah, there you go. That's where you can find me.
Cool, fantastic, thank you. As always, you can find this podcast at First to Last Pod, and email me at fromfirsttolastpodcast@gmail.com if you want a guest on the show. It's as easy as sending me a message on Twitter and saying, hey, I want to be a guest on the show. Can I talk about 6 Feet Under? And me saying, yes. Are you free in 2 weeks? And the other person saying, yes. And then we just recorded it. And that's how easy it is.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where you are in the world. I will get up at dawn and I will do the work. Okay. Awesome. Marcelo, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sean. It was fun.
Excellent. Okay, well, my name is Sean Fallon. This has been From First to Last. Goodbye. Thank you.